So I'm Aaron. I work on the mobile apps team here at Esri. Today we're going to be talking about automating workforce for ArcGIS with Python. So I just want to start off with a couple of questions. I'm just curious how many people in the audience use workforce currently? Okay. Of those people, how many use ArcGIS Online? And then how many use Enterprise? Okay, cool. So to get started, since some people in the room haven't used Workforce before, I'll just do a quick overview of what the stack is and how Workforce is built under the hood. So to start with, Workforce is a management system for your field workers. So it consists of two different parts. There's a web application which lets you plan and assign work to different workers, and then there's a mobile app for workers out in the field where they can view their list of assignments, complete them, report notes, things like that. So here's an example that shows some screenshots of what the mobile app looks like. So basically, the workers out in the field, they'll launch their Android or iOS device. They'll view different work assignments in their queue. They can sort their lists based on high priority items, low priority items, due dates, things like that. They can receive local notifications if they get a new assignment or a high priority assignment. They can set their status, so they can be either working, on break, completing the work. Additionally, they can add and edit notes to each assignment, so if they need to report something back to the dispatcher, they can add a note. And then finally, they can view attachments and add attachments in the field. So on the website, there's the project owner. So they will be the person that is creating the workforce project. And so usually there's one workforce project per event that's going on. So in the web app, they will be configuring the assignment type. So this could be anywhere from doing inspections to planting trees. It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. After you add different assignment types, the dispatcher will add other mobile workers and other dispatchers. So it's not just one dispatcher, one worker. It can be multiple dispatchers, multiple workers. So each worker has a contact number, a job title, notes about them, their username, etc. And then finally, the dispatcher has to configure the maps and layers. So by default, Workforce spins up 4 different feature services, which I'll get into in a second. But you can add other layers of your assets, different base maps, etc. And then finally, you can configure app integrations. So Workforce can integrate with Collector, Survey123, Navigator, and Explorer. So you can launch those apps directly from Workforce on the mobile app. So when the dispatcher goes to create a new assignment, there's several ways they can do this. They can enter an address in the web app, have that geocoded, and then placed on the map. They can actually pan the map around, click on the map, drop a point. That will create a new assignment. Additionally, if you have other layers, such as an example might be of fire hydrants that need to be inspected, you could select those fire hydrants in your map, click Add Assignments, and it'll drop a whole bunch of assignments at those locations. And then finally, what we're here today to talk about is how to automatically create these types of assignments. So work assignment. So there's different properties of work assignments. So there's a status, a due date, a priority, assignee, the type of work. There's different states. So each assignment has one of these different states. It could be unassigned, so no one's working on that. It could be assigned, someone's assigned, but they're not working on it. It could be in progress, so the mobile worker out in the field, they're doing something right now related to that assignment. It could be paused. The worker could be working on a different assignment, or it could be on break for lunch, for example. Finally, it can be completed or declined. So if the worker can't actually complete the assignment for some reason, they can't access that location, they can report back that it was declined and provide a reason. Additionally, all assignments have different timestamps. So there's a due date, there's when it was assigned, there's when it was marked as in progress, when it was paused, when it was completed. So this way you can track over time how work gets completed and how long it takes. There's also different priorities. So the dispatcher can assign priorities such as low, medium, high, and critical. So this lets your workers view which assignments need to be completed most importantly. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, you can add and view attachments. So the workers themselves, I think we already talked about this. So let's jump into the actual workforce project. So the workforce project is an item on ArcGIS Online or on Portal. It's built in JSON, so it's very similar to the web map, web scene, other items on ArcGIS Online. It contains two different web maps. So there's a dispatcher web map, which the dispatcher will see in the web application, and then there's a mobile web app, which the worker will see on their location. So the mobile web map only shows the worker that's signed in on their phone. It doesn't show the other workers, whereas the dispatcher map shows everything. Additionally, the workforce project consists of several layers. So there's a dispatcher layer, which is a feature layer in a feature service. There's another feature service layer that has the workers. There's a third feature service layer, which is probably the most important one, which is the assignments. And then finally, there's a location tracking feature service, which lets you record where your workers went throughout the day if you enable that. And then in addition to those feature services, there's a project group. So that group contains all of the resources, including the project, those 4 feature services, and the 2 web maps. And then finally, when you create a new project, it creates a new folder which stores all of those items in the same location. So if you look at this chart here, this is also available online. It might be a little hard to read here. But this shows the schema of the different feature service layers. So in the center here, we have assignments. So they have several different fields here, including description, status, notes, priority, assignment type, several different date fields. And then there's also editor tracking is enabled. So you can see when it was created, when it was edited, things like that. If you look over in the upper left here, this is the workers feature service layer. So in here, they have the name, the status, the title, their user ID. So the user ID corresponds to their named user in ArcGIS Online or in Portal. And so that's a very important distinction. So if you look at the assignments feature service, they also have a field called worker ID here. And so the worker ID corresponds to the object ID here represented by the primary key. So these two are linked together loosely based on that relationship. Additionally, there's dispatchers. So it's very similar to the workers. It's just they're dispatching the work instead of actually accomplishing the work or completing the work. And then up here, you can see there's a couple like lookup tables that define what the different statuses are and what their codes are. So to get started with Python, I just put the slide up here because we get a lot of questions about this online and the forums and whatnot. So basically, you need to install Python 3.5 or higher. We recommend Anaconda. You don't have to use Anaconda. You can then install the Python API. So all the demos that I'm going to show in a little bit, they all use the Python API from ArcGIS. Then you can clone the workforce scripts repo. So this has a whole bunch of examples that I'll go through in a minute. Once you clone that, you can run like pip install -r requirements.txt, and that will install all the other libraries that are required for the script. And then finally, once you do that, you can actually run the scripts. So I'll go through a quick example here in Jupyter that kind of shows how you can access the workforce project and access those different layers and web maps. So the first thing that you need to do, so this is a Jupyter notebook if you're not familiar. It was showed in the plenary. It lets you just run Python in an interactive way. It's good for demoing and creating reports. So basically, you need to import ArcGIS and any other libraries that you need to use. So we'll do that step here. The next step is you need to create your GIS object here. So this uses the ArcGIS Python API. So we just create our GIS. So this handles all the authentication for us. So we pass in our org, username, and then password if you're writing a script. Here I'm just going to enter it interactively. So this will spin up an authenticated session with ArcGIS Online here. And then I specified my project ID here. So this is the project that I want to connect to. So if we jump back to, jump back here, you can see the project ID up here in the URL. That is the same project ID that I'm using here. So the first step is to actually get this workforce project in Python. So we can call gis.content.get. This returns an item. Once we have that item, we can call get data on that, and that will return a dictionary very similar to the JSON structure of the item. And then finally, I'm going to print that out so we can look at what that actually looks like. So if we run this, you can see it spits out a nice JSON structure here. So we have a worker web map ID. So this gives us the ID of that worker web map if we need to modify that in any way. It gives us the dispatcher web map ID. So if we need to modify the dispatcher web map, such as adding different layers, changing different visibility, things like that, you can access that. It has different objects here. So there's a dispatcher object, assignments object, workers object, and tracks object. So each of these contains other properties. So for dispatchers, it contains the service item ID. So this is the item for the service feature, or the dispatcher's feature service. So we can use this to get that URL. It also provides the direct URL here as well. Very similar thing for the assignments, the workers, and the tracks. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see that workforce projects are versioned. So this is just something to keep in mind as the product matures. We have a group ID, so if you need to access a specific group that this workforce project uses, you can access that. If you need to add layers to the folder that the project uses, you can access the folder ID here. And then finally, there's different assignment integrations. So by default, as I mentioned earlier, we can integrate with Collector, Survey123, Navigator. So when you create an empty project, it will automatically add the Navigator integration here. And then through the web interface, you could add integration for Collector, Survey123. You can even manually edit this to add your own custom URL scheme if you have your own app that you need to integrate with Workforce. So just as an example, I'm going to show how you can get the dispatcher web map here. So I'm going to just call gis.content.get, grab that dispatcher web map ID, and get that item. So if I run this, you can see it pulls up Dev Summit Demo 2018 dispatcher web map. So you can see how we can access that. And then finally, down here, I can actually render that map in the Jupyter Notebook here. It might take a second. While we wait for that to load, I'll jump into how we can query assignments. All right, so here we go. So in the map, you can see it's empty right now. I don't have any assignments. So this is what I would expect. So just to show how you can query assignments in a pretty simple, straightforward manner. Again, we can call gis.content.get, pass in the item ID that we want. So in this case, we'll pass in the assignments and the item ID for that assignments layer. So if I call this, you can see it returns the assignments feature layer here. This is a feature service layer. So I can actually grab any layers in this item by just calling .layers and then passing in the ID of the layer that I want, or the index of the layer that I want. So if I run this, you can see it returns a feature layer object. So once you have a feature layer object in Python, or in the Python API, you can call different methods on that, such as query, apply edits, other things. So just in this example, I'm just querying my assignments, and I should not see any since I don't have any added in my project yet. So here, it just returns I have 0 features. If I did have features, I would get a nice dictionary here that showed all the different attributes of each of my assignments. So if we jump back. So that was just a brief introduction into the workforce schema and how you can access different properties of the project and different layers. So now I'm going to go through how you can actually automate some of these processes using some of the example scripts that we provide. So the first step, once we have an empty project, is we need to load different assignment types. And then after we load those assignment types, we need to load a bunch of workers to actually complete those assignments. So jump back. This time, I will go to PyCharm here. So here, I have a very simple CSV file with different assignment types. So I have tree removal, tree planting, gardening, and trash cleanup. So 4 different assignment types. And I want to import these assignment types into my empty project. So if we jump back to the user experience here, if you're doing this through the UI, you would go to the assignments type assignment types tab here and enter your assignment types manually. So this is what we're trying to automate. So we jump back here. We have a script called create assignment types. So in this script, I'll show you how this works. So if we look at how we actually call the script, you pass in a username, so workforce scripts. You pass in the password, so Esri12345. You pass in the URL, so in this case we're hitting our specific org. You specify the project ID, and then you also specify the CSV file that you want to use that stores your different assignment types. And then finally, we have a log file that just records any things going on in our script. So that's how you call the script. So what does this script actually do? So I'll start debugging this script, and we can see what happens. So it launches the script here, connects the debugger. So this is the very first entry point into the script here. So this is where you need to parse all those arguments. So in this example, we're using the ArcGIS. It's a default library in Python. So if we step through here, we can parse all of those different parameters I just showed you. Once we're done parsing those, we'll jump into the main function here. So here we need to create our GIS object, very similar to that Jupyter notebook I just showed. So we'll pass in our org URL, our username, password, and then verify certificate. So this is an important parameter to take note of. So especially if you are using the Python scripts against an enterprise instance and you're using a self-signed certificate instead of like a well-known established certificate from a certificate authority. So in many cases, your certificate is not part of the bundle that's used for authentication here. So you might need to specify verify certificate as false. This will work around that SSL error that you run into. So that's something to keep note of. So once we've authenticated, we'll create a content manager. So we can just call gis.content. That'll let us access different properties or different items within our portal. So here I want to get that project from Workforce. So I'll just pass in the project ID, grab that project item, and then I want to get the data for that, which I showed earlier. So now that I have this nice dictionary, you can kind of see a preview here with the worker web map ID. I want to actually create an assignment feature layer because I need to access that assignments feature layer and I need to add types to that layer. So if I grab that feature layer, the next thing is I need to get the different assignment types from that CSV file. So I need to read that CSV file that I passed in. So we'll jump into this function here. So this is pretty straightforward. We just grab the absolute path of that CSV file and make sure that it's correct. We start off with an empty list of assignment types, and then we read the CSV file and parse out those different assignment types. So here, it's only one line, so we don't really have to, oops, wrong button. So we only really need to read that first line. And in here, we're just saying get that line, split it by the commas there, and read it back as assignment types. So once we do that, you can, if I hover over here, you can see now I have a list of those 4 different assignment types. So we'll return that to our main function here. So now we have that list of assignment types. If we do have assignment types, maybe our CSV file was invalid. Maybe there wasn't any info in there. So we just wanted to make sure that we check that. Then we can add these different assignment types with another function. So we'll jump into here. So in here, we've passed in the assignment feature layer and the assignment types. So the assignment types are part of a coded domain. So we actually need to add these new assignment types to that field and that domain. So if we look at how we're accessing this, we're saying assignment feature layer, properties, fields. So we're iterating over every field that's in the assignments feature layer. And then if that field is equal to the assignment type field, then we want to edit that field. So that's what we're doing here. So then once we know that we have the correct field, we're iterating over all of those assignment types, those 4 assignment types. And then basically we just add that assignment type to the field. So you can see here, I'm grabbing my list of current codes. So right now, I don't have any assignment types, so it's an empty list. If I did have existing assignment types, then I would see one or more values here. So then we need to assign the next code. So since we didn't have any, we'll start off with 1. So we'll add 1, jump through here, and then finally, now that we have that code, we can provide the name and actually create that object that we need to send to update the definition. So here we're specifying the assignment type and the code. So if we jump down here, we'll do it for all 4 of those, and then I'll show you how we actually update it. So here, if I hover over, let me actually drag this up here so you can see. So in the assignment feature layer, this loads. If we go to properties, and then go to fields, and then if we find assignment types, and then domain, and coded values, you can see that it added those 4 properties here. So we haven't pushed this change up to the server yet, though. This is still a local change in our script. So finally, what we actually have to do is update the definition of that feature layer. So we'll just call assignment feature layer.manager. So this gives us the admin or owner access to that feature layer, and then call update definition. So we'll run that. And you can see here, if that finished our script, we can look down here. It says success true, so it added those different types, and then we have a log function that just says it was completed. So that's how you can add assignment types. So the next thing that we need to do after we've added those assignment types is we need to actually add some workers. So here I have an example CSV file with myself and Craig. So in this file, I have the name, I have the status, I have the title, the contact number, and the user ID. So the real important factor here, the real important field here is the user ID. So this is my named user in our org, and this is Craig's named user in our org. So I want to import these into our workers feature service. So I'll show you how this script looks and when you want to run it. So here, you pass in the username again, the password, the URL to our org, and then there's different parameters you can specify here. So maybe your CSV file doesn't have the same schema that my CSV file has. It has different, like instead of name, it has first name, last name, or something like that. You can specify the name of your fields here. So in my case, it was name, status, user ID. Maybe you have different fields. You can specify those here. Additionally, we just specify the CSV file that we need and the project ID. So that's how we run it. So if we debug this, I can actually step through and show you how this works. So import workers. So again, we're going to parse all of these arguments and then go into our main function here. So we'll jump into main. We'll create our GIS object. So pass in the username, password, whether to verify the certificate or not. We'll grab our project. We'll grab the project data. And then we'll grab the workers feature layer based on the URL in this case. So we'll grab that workers feature layer. So right now there's no workers in here. If we ran query, we would see nothing. So that's what we'll do. So current workers, you can see here it says it's a list and it's empty. So there's no workers in our project yet. So we'll continue to step through this script here. So the next thing that we need to do is actually read our CSV file to grab all those workers, and then we can push them into that service. So if we step through here, you can see in this case, I'm using a dictionary reader. So this lets you map different fields in your CSV file to the actual values without having to do any manual work, really. So here, we're going to read the name and read the status and read the user ID and create a new set of attributes for that worker. So if we step into here, one thing I want to note is you might see this function here, get field name. So you might be wondering, why do we have this? So we ran into an issue when there's a difference between ArcGIS Online and Portal. So in Portal, when you're using the data store, it uses all the field names are lowercase and have underscores. Versus in ArcGIS Online, you can have uppercase names. So sometimes there's a difference between the two, and this is why we have a special helper function here to make sure that you're using the correct field name so you don't get any errors. So once we create this set of worker attributes here, which I'll show, so it read my name, my status, the user ID. Some of these other fields are optional, such as the title, the contact number. So if you don't specify those or you don't have them in your CSV file, that's cool. It's not going to break anything. And then finally, we're going to actually create a feature. So the ArcGIS API for Python has a feature, class or object, and we need to create an object of that. So we're going to pass in the attributes that I just showed you to create a new feature without any geometry. So this will be my new worker feature. So there's also some validation that we need to do. So we want to make sure that this user actually exists in our organization or exists in ArcGIS Online. So we have a little step here that will check that for us. If they don't exist, then it'll raise an exception and log it as a critical error. Additionally, we want to make sure that this user doesn't already exist in the project. There's no reason to add this person 2, 3, or 4 times. We only need to add them once. So if they already exist, we'll also raise an exception and log that as a message. So finally, we're going to add this new worker to our list of workers. So we'll do that. We'll do that again for Craig, and then we'll jump down here. So now that we have our list of workers, we can actually add them to that feature layer. So here, I'm calling workers feature layer .edit features, and then I'm saying adds. So adds is one of the key word parameters here. So you can say adds, updates, or deletes. But in this case, we just want to add our workers. So we'll cast this to a feature set of workers, and then pass that into the function here. So now that if I hover over the response here, you can see add results. And it shows us all the different objects that were created in that service. So now that we've added those workers to the service, we actually need to add those workers to the group so that they can access the service and the project and the maps. So first, we're going to get the list of worker IDs that we just added. And then for all of those worker IDs, we need to add them to that group. So the first step is to grab that group. So we call workforce project data, and then we pass in the group ID. So this will give us the group ID. We can grab that group. And then finally, we'll just call group.addUsers, and then pass in that list of worker IDs, and it'll add all those workers or users to that group. So once we do that, we can log our response, and you can see it's completed. All of our workers were added successfully. So now there should be some workers. So if we actually go back here and open the project, we should see there's a list of workers now in this demo. So if I go to create an assignment, assign to, and you can see now Craig and myself are here in this list. So that's how that works. So now the main meat of Workforce, the assignments. So how can I add my own assignments, either from a CSV file, from SQL, from Excel, from SAP? It all boils down to creating a feature and putting that into the assignments feature service layer. So here we're just going to use a CSV file for an example because it's easy to demo. But there's no reason you can't connect this to other systems that you already have. So in this example, we have an assignment CSV file. So we have a couple fields. We have the X and Y coordinates for every assignment. We have the type of assignment. So that's a coded value here, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Those assignments that we just added like 5 minutes ago. We have the location address. We have the dispatcher ID. We have the description of that assignment. We have a priority. We have a work order ID, a due date, an optional attachment. Oops. And we have the worker that should be assigned to that. So if you look at the end here, I'm assigning a few assignments to myself. So we want to parse this CSV file and create assignments. Yeah, do you have a question? Where? Oh. Thanks. So when we were creating the assignments from CSV, we have a specific script for that. So I'll show you how you can run this script and which parameters you need to specify. oops, wrong one. So here, you might be a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of parameters that you have to specify. But this is nice. So this lets you have one script that you can configure to run against multiple projects with different CSV schemes, etc. So this way you don't have to copy and paste different scripts around. Yeah? I'm not exactly sure because it'll default to, I think it defaults to 4236 in the script. So if you have a custom one, then if you have to have some sort of transformation. So if that transformation is not supported on the server, then I'm not sure exactly what happens. So here, I'm just passing in those parameters that very similar to the other scripts. So like specifying my X field, my Y field, description field, etc. One important thing down here at the bottom is time zone. So you can specify what time zone you want these assignments to be created in. So by default, the feature services use UTC time. And so when you need to specify what time zone you're in, and we need to convert those times into UTC before we submit them so that it works as expected for you. So if we start this script, debug it. So here, we jumped right into the main function. So we will create our GIS object. We will get our content manager. We will get our workforce project. And then here, we need to get the assignments feature layer, the dispatcher feature layer, and the worker feature layer to do some different validations. So here, we want to grab all of our dispatchers so that we know, so that we can validate that the dispatcher specified in the CSV file is actually a valid dispatcher. So we'll do this step. So if we hover over here, you can see there is at least one dispatcher, the workforce scripts user. Down here, if we continue to step through this, you can see that we have some lists of status, priorities, and assignment types. So we want to validate that the assignments listed here have valid statuses, valid priorities, and valid assignment types. If they don't, then we don't want to import those assignments, and we want to raise an exception so that you can debug and fix your CSV file or adjust the parameters you specified. So here, we're going to grab all the assignment types, or all the statuses, all the priorities, and all the assignment types here. So if we continue, we can see that. So if I hover over here, I have my assignment types. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So those would correspond to those ones that I just imported. For priorities, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then for statuses, we have 0 through 6 here. So those are what we can use. Now we actually need to parse this CSV file. So again, we're going to be using the dictionary reader and read all those rows into different dictionaries. So we continue. You can see here assignments in CSV file. So we have an ordered dictionary. Sorry about that. With all these assignments that we parse from the CSV file. So in here, we can actually create the geometry and create the attributes that we need to submit to the server. So we continue through here. First, we want to create the geometry object. So this is a dictionary that has X, Y, spatial reference, including the WIC ID. So once we create the geometry, to do this, we're just parsing the X field and the Y field from our dictionary that we read from the CSV file. So this gives us an object that looks something like that, where we have X, Y, and a spatial reference. And then we want to create the attributes. So here we need to read the assignment type, the location, the status, and the assignment read. We'll just mark that. Oops. So we continue here. So this gives us our default attributes that we need to submit to the server. Additionally, there are other fields that are optional, such as the description, the priority, the work ID, the due date. Those are optional fields, so you don't have to create those. So we'll jump through here a little bit, continue down. So here you can see where we're actually doing that date formatting. So we're making sure that we cast your date to the correct time zone that you specified. So one thing to take note of in this script is since we've added the ability to import attachments from the CSV file, so if you look here, I have an attachment PNG. So we actually need to wrap this feature in another layer so that we can store that CSV path. So we'll do that. So we have this assignment wrapper here. So in the assignment wrapper, it has the feature and it has the worker username and it also has the attachment file. So once we do that, we'll set the worker ID. So we need to look up, if you remember, I specified the username here, but the link between the assignment and the work ID is based on the object ID of the worker, not the username of the worker. So we need to look up all those worker IDs. That's what we're doing in this step. Once we do that, we also need to look up all the dispatcher IDs and make sure that we do some validation here. So we'll jump ahead. All right, cool. So finally, once we've done our validation, we can actually add this to our list of assignments down here. So we have assignments to add as a list. We will append our assignment wrapper that contains the assignment, the worker, and the attachment. So we'll do that for all of our assignments. So now we can actually add them. So here we're calling assignment feature layers. We're calling the edit features again. It's very similar to the when we imported the workers. And we will specify that we want to add these workers, or add these assignments, sorry. We'll read those assignments from that list and then add them. So if we jump ahead, you can see we get a response here and it says add results. So we just added all those assignments. So it was successful. And then finally, we need to add those attachments. We need to read the object ID of those assignments that we just created and then add the attachments to those. So that's what we're doing in this step here. Jump that. So basically, in this block of code here, we're just reading, we're making sure that it's a valid attachment location, so it's a valid file. Then we're uploading the attachment. So you can see here, we grab the attachment manager. So this can be accomplished by calling arcgis.features.managers.attachment manager, and you pass in the assignment feature layer that you have. Once you have that manager, you can call add, and then you just pass in the file that you need to add. So it's very simple to do this. So we'll just continue. This should finish our script up, and then we should have a whole bunch of assignments imported. So that's how you can import assignments from a CSV file. So let's actually see what that looks like in the app. So if you remember, we had no assignments, and now we have 6 assignments that I have to work on. So if I actually jump over to my iPhone here and load the worker app in Workforce, so I don't remember what this is called. So let me open the Dev Summit demo here. So you can see I have a list of 3 assignments. I have a critical assignment at the top and then 2 high priority assignments. So I can just click on this, acknowledge that I saw that it's high priority, I can start my assignment, and then I can finish my assignment. So I did 1 assignment now. So maybe after a while, you have several field workers, they completed a whole bunch of assignments, and you want to export these assignments to something else, like a CSV file, you want to export to GeoJSON, something like that. So we provide a script that lets you export your assignments directly to CSV file if you need to provide a report, for example, to someone else. So this is pretty straightforward. So again, I'll just show you how we set this up. So here, again, we pass in those same parameters, username, password, org, the project ID, and then optionally you can provide a where clause. So in this example, I'm saying 1 equals 1, so this will give me every single assignment. And I specify a time zone again, so this lets me convert my different dates to show in the local time zone that I want them to. And then finally, I provide an output CSV file here, so exported assignments.csv. So if we debug this, we could actually see what this looks like. Export assignments to CSV. So here we're parsing those same arguments, very similar to the other scripts, using the argparse. Then we will create ArcGIS, very similar to before. Oops. We'll get the workforce project, we'll get the assignments feature layer that we want to query, and then we will actually query that using our specified where clause here. So if we hover over assignments, you can see that it returned a whole bunch of features, those assignments that we just previously added. So here, we're actually doing some date formatting to make it look nicer when you open your file. So we convert from the raw milliseconds to an actual nice date time string. So that's what we do in this section here. Finally, down in this area, we just provide a failsafe. So if you don't return any features, it doesn't actually return the field names. So if you export it to a CSV file, then it would just be an empty CSV file, or it might not even work. So once we do that and provide that check here, finally we can call assignments.save. So this is your feature set, and the Python API provides a very nice function here, save. And then you just specify where you want to save that file to. So if you save it to a .csv file, it'll save it to .csv. If you specify .json, it'll save it to a JSON file. If you specify like GeoJSON, it'll save it out to a GeoJSON file. And that's all handled by the Python API. So that's pretty nice. So if we, I think that worked. Not sure where that went. I'll just continue on. So finally, I want to show a couple like actual useful examples. So one of the requests that we get is maybe I'm a manager and I want to see in semi-real time when work gets completed. So we provided an example that uses a Slack webhook. So our team uses Slack for communication. I'm not sure if any of you use that. But our idea here was that when an assignment gets completed, I want to send a notification to Slack with the assignment information, who did it, and stuff like that. So here, I'll walk through how we did that with this example here. So first off, we created a simple config file. So this contains my webhook. So this is the function this is the URL that I want to actually post my assignment to. In the next section here, we provide the authentication parameters, so the org, the username, and the password. Then we provide a log file again. And then finally, this is important down here, we provide a SQLite database. So we're storing all the assignments that we query into SQLite to make sure that we don't report repeated assignments. So I'll just go through the code here and then just let it run. So when we first run the code, it's going to initialize a database. So this will create our SQLite database, and it stores all those assignment parameters. So it stores the description, the status, priority, assignment type, the work order ID, all these fields. It'll spin up a new SQLite database, and we're good to go. So if we actually look at what we do here, when we launch this script, we just run an indefinite loop in this example that pulls every 5 seconds. And then it pulls based on a query. So here, we're saying every 5 seconds, query all assignments where the status is equal to 3. So that means that the assignment was completed. So I want to show all these completed assignments. So once we query that, we might get one or more assignments. So down here, we're actually gathering all of the global IDs in our SQLite database and making sure that these assignments that were returned from the feature service are not already in our SQLite database. They weren't already processed. So this way we make sure that it's unique every time that we're posting to Slack. And down here, after we've established that, we add a new assignment to our local database to make sure that we don't repeat that again. And then finally, once we have that assignment, we verify that it's new, we can actually post to Slack. So if we jump up to this function here, where is it? Post to Slack. So here, I'm creating a message. So I'm saying assignment completed, location, description, notes, worker, time, link. And then I pass in a bunch of the attributes from that feature or from that assignment. So you can see here, I'm dynamically building this link based on the project ID and the assignment number. And so if I actually start running this script, this one's in a loop. All right, so you can see here down in the console that it's running processing assignment, sleeping for 5 seconds, processing assignment, sleeping for 5 seconds. So if I actually jump back, let me put these two together, bring up Slack. Oops. Anyway. So here's what I have going on. So I'm running this. If I complete an assignment, like I showed you earlier, here. So trash cleanup, start this assignment, finish the assignment. Then if I jump back to Slack, you should see that new assignment just got posted here to my message channel. And then if we clicked on this link here, it actually opened Workforce to that exact assignment, and we can see any more information that we want and the location on the map. So that's a pretty cool way you can integrate with existing systems such as Slack or other chat clients. I want to go into one final demo here. So one of the questions that we get a lot is, how can I create assignments from an existing layer? So here's an example Jupyter Notebook that shows you how you can do that. So I've created, let me open up this project to show you that it's empty. So I created this new project last night. So if I open this project, you can see there's no assignments, there's nothing on the map, it's pretty empty. So let's see how we can actually build this. So the first step is to import our different libraries. So we're going to import ArcGIS and date time. We're going to specify our org, username, the password when we interact, we edit it, enter it, the project ID, and the feature service ID. So in this case, I have a list of restaurants in Palm Springs, and I want to send out all my workers to do an inspection at all these restaurants. So I already have this existing layer, and I already know who should be working on these, so I want to just automate this. Maybe I need to do this every month, for example. So this is what we're trying to do with this example. So here, I'll run this block. So here, we're just creating our GIS, getting the project data. Then in this next block here, we want to actually add that restaurants layer to the dispatcher map. So we want to add a layer to our map. So here, we are calling gis.content.get. We're getting that project ID, and then we're getting the dispatcher web map here. And then we're casting that to a web map so that we can actually add layers. Once we do that, we can grab the restaurants layer from that feature service item, so layer 0. We can then add that layer to the web map, and then we will update that web map and update the JSON online. So if I run this block, you can see what this will look like. Just gotta wait for the map to render. All right, so if the layer actually has a scale symbology set, so you have to zoom in a little bit to see this. So here, I just added that layer to my map. So I have these different restaurants in Palm Springs. I can click on them, see the pop-up info, etc. So now I want to actually add a worker to my project. I don't have any workers yet, so I just hard-coded this in this example. I want to add myself to this project. So I'll create a new worker, specify the attributes, so the name, status, user ID, and then I will grab that worker's feature layer, and then I will add my worker to it. So I'll run this block. You can see the add results here, successful. And then finally, as I mentioned previously, we need to add that user to the actual group that the project created for us. So that's what I do in this section here. And then I'm querying that worker so we can use it in a second. So now I've added workers, I've added that layer to my map. The next step is I need to add an assignment type. So I showed this earlier, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But basically, I just want to add a kitchen inspection type. So I'll run this block again. This will give me one new assignment type in my project. So it's successful. And then finally, I want to add an assignment at each restaurant. So here, I'm querying the restaurant's feature layer, getting all those restaurants. Then for every restaurant, I'm creating a new assignment. So I create a new feature. I pass in the geometry. So the restaurant, all restaurants have a geometry object. So I just directly call that. And then finally, the location of my assignment corresponds to the restaurant's address. The assignment type corresponds to 1. I just added that kitchen inspection. Status is 0. Assignment is unread since no one's looked at it yet. The worker ID is my worker, so that's Aaron Nitro. And the object ID should be 1 or 2. And then the status of my assignment, I just hard code that to 1. And then, I guess I don't need that. Assigned, so status of 1 should be assigned. And then finally, I'm specifying the assigned date here. So this specifies that it was assigned today. And finally, I'm just calling edit features and adding that all these assignments. So if I run this block, you can see that it added a whole bunch of assignments automatically for me. And then now, if I re-render, oops, I don't know why that came up. If I re-render my map here, you can see now that there's, in addition to those restaurants, there's a whole bunch of assignments here. So if I click on one of these points, it should show me the restaurant. So it has the kitchen, and then and the pop-up is not. Let's see if this will work better. Oh, let me just show you in the project since that doesn't seem to work. So we zoom into the actual project here. Let's click on this cluster, turn off clustering. So you can see I have all these assignments. If I click on one of these, it brings me to that assignment. So that's an interesting demo that shows how you can take an existing feature layer and bring that automatically in to Workforce with a Jupyter Notebook. So I think that's about all I have. Let me just check. Yep. So here's some resources. So the top link here is our repo on GitHub with those example scripts. The second link here contains that notebook that I just showed and the notebook that I showed at the beginning. And then finally, the third link here is doc to a Workforce that has more information about the schema, required parameters, other information about Workforce. So at this time, I guess I'll open it up to any questions. Yeah. Sorry, what was it? I mean, I've only done like a small demo with it, but it should easily handle like thousands of assignments. Like I wouldn't be concerned at all about that. Yeah.
All the examples that you went through today, you require the Workforce project already created.
Yeah.
Is there something that can automate that part?
We don't provide any, at this time we don't provide any scripting, any way to do that through scripting. I mean, you could definitely, if you're, this is a developer summit, if you looked at all the REST calls that are made when you create the project through the web UI, you could mirror that and do something like that. It's something we're looking into, is extending how we can show these scripts and enhance them by wrapping some of that functionality that we showed here into like an API to make it easier for developers.
So if I went through the REST API and then I replicate all the schema there, would that in turn create a Workforce project?
Yeah, so I can show you what I mean. So, so if we open Workforce here, if we open like the Sorry. Oops. So if we open developer tools, network, we bring this to the bottom. So if we go to create a project, I gotta add a test one, you can see it makes all these REST calls here. So you would have to mirror all these REST calls. So it's not like a straightforward thing. There's a lot of logic, application logic that goes on to handle this. So I mean, I wouldn't personally recommend that at this time.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep.
The GitHub repository with the automation scripts you showed?
Yeah.
Is that ever going to be a package from Conda, or is it just you have to go ad hoc with the
That's something that we're working towards. So we don't have a timeline yet, but we're definitely interested in bringing a lot of the application logic into the ArcGIS Python API. So it's something to look forward to, but I can't guarantee that it's going to happen at this time.
the automation process? It would be like manually firing off bash files or cron jobs, or
Yeah. So the idea is like you would use like Windows Task Scheduler or cron job or Jenkins or whatever task scheduler you're using. Just configure how you want the script to run.
Is that workforce required a license, or it's come with?
So Workforce is part of ArcGIS Online, and there's a separate installer for 10.5.1 portal and 10.6 portal, but it doesn't cost anything extra. The only thing you have to worry about is like your user licenses, like level 2 versus level 1, stuff like that.
So with the portal, you can just download it.
Yeah, you just install it onto your portal.
so all the work that's remedial for workforce, because I'm not familiar with it, but all the field workers have to have level 1 or level 2, or
I believe level 2, since they have to edit assignments. Level 1 cannot do that kind of stuff. Yes, in the back.
I have this project, like the manager in the office pick a polygon and spatially query to pick up all the accounts inside that polygon and send it to maybe workforce, and so this has to be count for the few workers to work on. So what do you recommend me to do, how would add for the part that the manager in the office pick the polygon to query all those points and send them workforce? So what's the best approach?
So one thing that you can do right now, just through the UI, is open this project here. So if I zoom in here, some assignments. You can use this tool here to select right now we only have a box, but it'll grab all the, if you had an external layer here, you could grab all those features within that box and then assign them and create assignments from those. So that's one way. If you want to actually automate that, you would have to take your existing layer, take your polygon layer, and then take your point layer, whatever that consists of. Then you would have to intersect those two, either with Python, or you can do that on the server in some cases, and then figure out, say 5 assignments are within this polygon, and that polygon corresponds to Jim. So all those 5 assignments should be assigned to Jim. So it's definitely something that's possible. We don't have an example of that, but there's definitely other customers that are interested in that kind of workflow. So it's something that can be done.
If I only use workforce to draw polygons and pick up those points inside it, is there a way, does workforce have a way to report it that area in
At this time, Workforce just uses points for assignments, so there's no way to like assign a polygon.
So to pick a polygon, you just have to manually draw a box. Is there a way to query like polygon ID instead of drawing the box?
Yeah, so you're saying that if in this example, if I had a polygon around this point, I could click that polygon and then create assignments within that. Is that what you want? That's not something you can do right now. Is that something that you're interested in? Okay, that's not available at this time.
Because we have like, just say like a zip code of C, I don't want to draw a line because I might do wrong.
Yeah. So basically you want to spatially assign based on the existing polygons. Yep. Okay. I'll take that back to the team. I mean, at this time, that workflow is not supported.
If I want to wrap everything up into application and redistribute it, can I redistribute a ArcGIS API, Python, and Python 5 and everything? I can do that too.
I'm not exactly sure what the license is for the Python API. I guess we can just look it up.
Everything here is ArcGIS Online, so it's just credits.
So what's your angle, I guess?
Well, I want to wrap everything up into applications. This is good. This is general. I want to build something more user-specific for one type of industry, specific types, specific items.
Yeah.
Kind of like wrap everything up and do a project, assignments, types.
Yeah, I mean, so like the scripts we provide are like very general. They're not specific to any industry.
Right.
So you're welcome to take examples from that, make your own custom integrations. You can use the Python API for that. You can pull stuff from our repo. Like that's what it's there for. We're just providing very straightforward examples on what you need to do, what properties have to be set, how to access different parts of the project. But yeah, there's many other users that write their own custom integration, either with Python. They might use other languages like C#, JavaScript. At the end of the day, it's just based on the REST API. So you can use other languages. You're not restricted to Python.
So put together a Qt interface or any other Python GUI to automate some customized.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason that you cannot do that. I mean, at the end of the day, all we're doing is making REST calls to the feature service. So as long as you can sign in and hit that endpoint, then you can do whatever.
So is the same REST API behind online portal that everybody can use? It's just the Python is wrapped up in the
Yeah, so the Python API basically wraps the REST API and provides some additional functionality. But yeah, you can just, like if you, for example, let me just go. So if we open up like what this actually looks like in ArcGIS Online. So for example, like the assignments layer here. And I go to service URL. So it's just a feature service here. Regardless of if it's on Portal or ArcGIS Online, at the end of the day, it's just backed by a feature service. So any of the operations, like down here, query attachments, add features, supply edits, those are all supported. Yeah, over in the corner.
Can you add any additional fields to like the dispatcher and
So you can add additional fields to like the assignments if you have other fields that you want to show. They won't render in the UI, but you can definitely add them if you want to.
is it possible? Are there any templates for particular industries that might have specific goals for using Workforce, like field survey crews or restaurant inspections, whatever?
Yeah, we don't have like templates per se, but we have several different use cases on the Workforce landing page. So if you, I think it's maybe under resources maybe. It's either here or when you sign, let me sign out actually, it might be here. So there's a couple of examples here how it's used in the field. So these are some examples that you can get some knowledge from.
Trial based on using the web interface.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
I have a request for enhancement, I guess.
Sure.
Those fields that you can add on to the assignment, make it possible to interface those with the other apps like Surveyor.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're aiming to support because several users have asked for that. I mean, you can Craig is the product owner if you want to bother him. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you for attending. If you want, you can rate the session on the app.